Hi everyone. Today is Béla Bartók's birthday, and so today I want to talk about who Bartók was, why he's important, and why if you haven't listened to his music, you should really check it out. Now, Bartók is considered one of the very most important of all of the modernist composers, and I'm sure that some of you, when you hear modernism, you think eek, because a lot of modernistic music is very bad on the ear. It's something that might look interesting on the piece of notated paper, but it fails in many cases to do that one thing that music is supposed to do, which is to delight. And of course, that also means inspire, emote, move, make joyful, and all of the rest of it, make a joyful noise, as the Bible says. Now, Bartok's noises, though, were joyful because he's really the modernist that took 20th century music where it ought to have gone in the second half of the century. And when I talk about music in this video, I'm really talking about what, for a lack of a better word, we might call European classical music, most specifically modern music in that part of the genre tree, if you will. Now, Bartok himself said that he wanted to use unique and very advanced progressive harmonies and very interesting ideas about melody, various interesting ideas about dissonance and its relationship with harmony, but do so in a way that still makes the music listenable, that still creates a joyful and interesting and memorable experience for the listener. And I think that you'll find he did exactly that. On the one hand, Bartok was very much rooted in tradition, specifically the folkish traditions of his native Hungary. He was very much a nationalistic composer insofar as he catalogued and analyzed and knew backwards and forwards the traditions of Hungarian music, dating back to the ancient origins of that culture's music, right up into the modern Hungarian traditions of people like Franz Liszt. On the other hand, though, Bartok was a composer who pushed the boundaries of modernity very far, but he didn't push them over the cliff the way that a lot of people his same age and in his same situation as a 20th century European did. Now, because this channel focuses on all sorts of different genres, from classical to rock to hip hop to jazz and everything in between, I'm sure that you can suggest some other genres we can explore in the comments because, hey, there's only two genres of music when it comes down to it, the good and the bad. Bartok is very much in the good. One of his later pieces that was kind of a culmination of his entire career was his Concerto for Orchestra, where the entire large modern orchestra, with all its interesting sounds and all of its wonderful textures, served as a proverbial solo instrument, the way a piano or violin would do in a normal concerto. There are quite a few good recordings of this because, unlike with jazz, rock, or hip hop, where there's typically a definitive recording made by the artist, when we're talking about composers, there's not always a decent recording of the composer conducting it himself. In the 20th century, this is frequently different. Of course, when we're talking about the composers who existed in an age before recorded sound, it's nearly impossible. So the music is really in the hands of the conductor. And for those who are new to the orchestral world, I can't stress that enough. The same piece conducted by two different conductors can be the difference between feast and famine, the difference between amazing and shit. It really is. It is so important, and I really cannot stress that enough. Anyone who doesn't say the conductors make or break a musical performance is simply deceiving you, either out of ignorance or because of some other chip on their shoulder. Now, one of my favorite of the several very good recordings of Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra is by the Swiss conductor Ernest Ansermet. That's Ansermet. Unfortunately, even though he conducted on Decca for most of his career, whose label today is owned by Universal, it's a subsidiary, if you will. They released most of their great recordings of the 50s and 60s, which is when Ansermet was at his prime, but they haven't released this one. However, there is a fairly decent needle drop of the original LP available on the Internet Archive. Normally, I won't make you do much work when you listen to this channel, but I will put that in the link because I really like the purity of that version. It handles Bartok exactly the way he should be, not with the weight and grandeur of a traditional Germanic performance or with the very different kind of weight and grandeur of a Russian performance. But nor is it clinical, nor is it light in a bad way. It's really just right. And that's the thing with Ansermet. When he gets it right, he really gets it right. And I love his Bartok. So I will include that recording of Ansermet doing the concerto for orchestra in there. Now, the Piano Concerto number 3 of Bartok is well known to some rock fans because Frank Zappa played it on his famous tour in 1988, the one cut short because members of the band decided to hate each other. So definitely check that out. If you just type into Spotify Zappa and Bartok, you'll love that. Of course, there are many other very good recordings of the full concerto with orchestra. The pianist Jules Katchen also with Ansermet did that in the early 50s, and I'll put that recording into the description of the video down below for you as well. Um, Exploring Bartok is something that's very, very rewarding because he challenges the preconceptions that a lot of 21st century music listeners have about 20th century music. His music is incredibly listenable, but at the same time, it's challenging because it challenges you to think of harmony in unexpected ways. But because he's able to resolve the tension within his music so brilliantly well, and because the ideas he's throwing at you, literally throwing at you throughout the course of his compositions, are so compelling. I think that he really makes for a good introduction to modern orchestral music for people that might otherwise be skeptical or even frightened of that kind of exploration. Now, his violin concerto is something that you also ought to listen to. And for that, again, there's a version that isn't yet on Spotify, but that's available to listen to for free at the Mengelberg Society. Wilhelm Mengelberg is one of my two favorite conductors of all time. Simply a genius, one of the finest musicians ever. And he recorded it in 1939, and the violinist was Zoltán Székely, who performed absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to drop that in the description for you as well, because I think you'll really enjoy that. Bluebeard's Castle, a wonderful opera that he wrote. It's not incredibly long so far as operas go, and the best recording of that, which is on Spotify, is conducted by Antal Dorati. And these are just some of the great pieces that I think you'd really love to explore. So happy birthday to Bartok. If you haven't listened to him, see what I think is a really good composer and see who Frank Zappa thought was a very good composer. And he was very particular about the kind of composers he liked. He was a big fan of what I would call good modern composition, and he was, of course, a great modern composer himself. So check out some Bartok in order to wish him a happy birthday today, and I really think you'll enjoy it. You're not going to be disappointed. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for another video coming soon.